نعم جزاك الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه، ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما، وارزقنا فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين. اللهم افتح إلينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. صلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الكرام، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillah. One of the most remarkable things about the human being and human societies, human civilization, is our ability to tell a story. The mannerism in which the human mind can formulate an entire epic with different characters and different personalities of those characters and how they interact with each other. And the most remarkable thing of that remarkable thing is the human ability to replicate a story that is directly reflective of the reality of the human being in this world of existence. So in every great epic, there's always a protagonist and an antagonist, and the protagonist has a certain ambition, a purpose, and an objective that he wants to fulfill, and the antagonist likewise has his own agenda and ambition to fulfill, and they are both ultimately channeled towards a common finality. And so every epic ultimately also has its what's known as a climax, a finality, or as in the Greek word of eschatos, it has an eschatology, meaning there is a study that can be done towards the finality of that story to understand how all the events that transpired from the beginning of the story ultimately culminate and channel into the final scene of the story, where the determinant, the victor of this great epic, whichever epic it might be, is availed. And the most remarkable thing about it is that the human being is not concocting this story from his own imagination, in so much as he is merely reflecting what is already there in reality, which means that there is already a story that is existing and is being told, that the human being is just taking from and making his own blueprint from, which puts the human being in his place as far as creation is concerned and as far as the creator is concerned, in that the creator can create from absolute nothingness, without any matter existent or any form existent, any idea or concept existent, any aspect of anything existent. He can bring something into existence from that, which is really the true meaning of to create. Khalaqa in Arabic also has got these two dynamics, one that pertains only the creator, and then the other dynamic that can be used insofar as general speech is concerned. But the human being, however, cannot, and none of creation can do such a thing, to create something out of complete or absolute nothingness. Anything that we conceive of, whether it's a thought or an idea or anything pertaining reality, it comes from something that already exists in reality that Allah has created, whatever that might be. Even if it's an alien that no one has ever seen, or it's some fantasy creature that no one has ever heard of, there are always going to be aspects to anything that we conceive or even make that are already existent in reality, which is, if you examine it, it can be proven. Any of these, like alien depictions, why do they always have at least a nose or eyes, or they have hands of sorts, whether the hand is here or it's over here or whatever. There's some sort of blueprint that is there from already existing in reality. So that's the khalaq or the khalaqa that the human being does. But the khalaqa that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does is of pure origination, which is what is meant by Him saying that He has created the human being in His own image. It's there in the Hadith, it's there in the Old Testament and the New Testament of the Bible as well. In the book of Genesis, He created man of His own image. What it means is that He created man of His own conception. It's a unique conception that no one else could even think of doing that. It's the image that is in His being that He has created from. He is the one who has thought it out, and He is the one who has formed the human being in a form that is unique, that has no similitude to anything else in creation. So even though in the outward form we may bear some similitude, but there is a uniqueness to the human being that no other creation has got, and no other creation can replicate. And so the story of man really begins on this premise, because the story is still going on, right? It's not over yet. We are Banu Adam, we are children of Adam, and so our children then also become Banu Adam, and so on and so forth. So the story is still unfolding, which is truly unique against any other story that you could probably read. When the author has finished writing it, you're given a complete story. You can always turn to the last page and read what's going to happen in the end. But this story, you are part of the story, and it's still unfolding. And so the elements and the constituents and all the characters that are in this story are still unfolding the acts that they would manifest that would ultimately lead to the final objective. And so there is a protagonist of the story, and then there is an antagonist of the story, and this dichotomy is played out throughout the entirety of the story. You have believers on one side and disbelievers on the other side. You've got the righteous on one side, and then you've got the hypocrites on the other side. You've got truth on one side and then falsehood on the other side. And in the finality of this, you also see other dynamics playing out with the same dichotomy, where you've got the Messiah on one side and the false Messiah on the other side. You see? So going back, I know a lot of people get very interested in the eschatology of things, the signs and all those things, because primarily a lot of what's transpiring in our contemporary age have got the indicators of these signs manifesting within our lifetimes. But to truly understand these signs, you have to understand what transpired that set everything in motion. Meaning, to understand the end, you have to understand the beginning and how it has unfolded. You can open the book and read the last page and know what's going to happen, but you won't understand why that is going to happen until you start reading the whole story page by page. So it ultimately boils down to what transpired in the beginning, because that is what sets in motion the dichotomy in which the characters within the story can take either this path or that path. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presents the story in a very unique fashion. Before giving the components of what He is going to create, He provides us, those who are now examining this in hindsight, He provides us with what's known as the telos. So you've got the logos, which studies outward aspects of things, where primarily logic is applied. Ciencia is developed from that, sciences. So sciences are outward studies, material sciences. And then you've got ontology or ontos, which examines the nature of things. And that goes now from the outward, it goes to the inward of the thing. And then you've got the telos, which modernity argues against. They say, oh, there's no such thing as a telos or a teleology of things. The telos is really the purpose or the reason for that thing to exist. From a religious standpoint, we say that everything has a purpose. Allah has created everything for a purpose. And so to understand that purpose is to understand why He has created what He has created. In academia, you've got deontology, which counter opposes that, says no, there's no such a thing as, ontology or teleology. So the Quran emphasizes that there is such a thing as this, and so there is the science that would study that, the teleology would study that, is a valid science. So in Surah Al-Baqarah, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he sets the whole tale together now, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. When He said then to the angels, when your Lord said to the angels, I am going to place fil ard a khalifa, in the ard as khalifa. Now, I don't like translating the word ard because a literal translation of this kind of a word is very difficult because it's a very old word. It precedes its meaning, not the construct of the word, not the arada, not the construct, but what it means. It precedes humankind because it relates to something that existed before human beings existed. What we have done is just taken what is in our immediate perception and given it that word. So a lot of translations you will see, they say Arth or Earth, right? They refer to the planet Earth. It's not the planet that is being described here. Ard here is what's being described as the lowest of the low in the context of samawat wal ard. As a complete dominion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, samawat wal ard, and the samawat are higher from sama, which means something that's higher up, and then ard is lower, meaning the material world, the world of matter. What's also in the sciences now, it can be called alam al-shahada or alam al-khalq. It can be known as alam al-turab, the world of material or matter. Turab is like dust or dirt, matter. So he's saying that he's going to send into this material realm, this lowest of the low, a khalifa. And this term again, khalifa, is also what's mostly mistranslated, because everyone thinks about state khalifa, like, somebody who is going to rule and apply, political governance and all those things. But in this instance, it's a unique precedence because the individual is one man. There's no one else there that he's going to rule. There's no khilafah that he's being sent to establish. He's been sent to govern himself, and a governor is a worthy translation of that word. The Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not somebody who is going to represent God on earth in terms of Allah's sovereignty. Is somebody who is going to fulfill his role for the role that he has been sent to fulfill. In the likeness of an ambassador, which is another translation of the word Khalifa, or a vicegerent, is somebody who represents the state that he has come from, right? The country he has come from. And so he's been sent to another country to fulfill a certain role. And that's what ideally means here. The Khalifa is somebody who's been sent here to perform a certain role, a certain duty. And only by performing this certain duty can he then be honored in the divine presence. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here is that before he's even created the being, he has declared the purpose of the being. The purpose hence precedes the form. In Arabic, in logic, we say al-ma'ani qabla al-mabani, meaning precedes the form that has been built. Before you make something, you plan out what that thing is going to do. So when he made this declaration, there was a counter argument, not an argument per se, but there was a query made about this, because not as far as the creature is concerned, but insofar as the realm is concerned. And so they say, the angels in response, أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَفْسِكُ الدِّمَاءَ. أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا is the location. It's in reference to the location you're sending them to. أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا. Are you going to place someone there? It's not, the emphasis is not on the one being placed. It's not, are you going to place someone there? It's, are you going to place someone there? مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا, who is going to cause corruption there. He cannot cause corruption where we are, if the angels are. In the heavens or in paradise or in the divine presence, you cannot cause fasad. Fasad is something that is of this worldly nature. It can only happen in this world. It can't happen in the samawat. وَيَفْسِكُ الدِّمَاءَ, and the safaka here is the shedding of blood. يُفْسِكُ الدِّمَاءَ, وَيَفْسِكُ الدِّمَاءَ, and he will shed blood. And the waw is waw atifa, so it goes back to the fiha before it. So shedding blood there. While we, and this is the contrast given, وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ, while we glorify you bihamdika, with praise, وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ, and we sanctify you. So being in the angelic form and in the angelic stature and in the angelic presence, there's only one thing that you can do, is to glorify, sanctify, and praise God Almighty. Being in any other state, particularly the worldly state, there are only two things that can ultimately result in, that's the finality of it. The culmination of whatever you do will culminate in two things. And the combination of these two things will result in one other thing. The culmination of fasad will result in the person becoming kal khinzir, like a pig. Consumption or overconsumption, taking, just whatever, just fulfilling what's known as the akhlaq al-baha'im, the bestial qualities. The other, which is yafsiku dima'a, the shedding of blood, culminates from into a personification of kal-kalb, like a dog, just predatory, akhlaq as-saba, predatory and just rage, anger, hatred. That's ultimately, that's what it results in. It results in bloodshed, because that's what predators do. And the consumption is what the beasts do. And these are the habitants of this material abode. You've got the predators and you've got beasts, whether they are in the animal kingdom, the bird kingdom, the oceanic kingdom of the fish and all that. You've got predators, and then you've got just fish that consume. And then you've got the angelic presence, which is separated from that. When these two combine, and this is why in nature, when you look at animals, they don't actually combine these two. You can make a distinction between a creature that's either bestial or predatory. Like a dog is predatory. It's not bestial. A dog's inclination is not in consumption. It eats how much it eats. Once it's full, it does its other things, right? But a cow, for example, or a goat, it's always grazing. It's always, chewing the cud. That's its occupation. That's its preoccupation. The combination of these two results in demonic qualities. Akhlaq ash-shayateen. The demon is one who has combined these two. Now, the combination of these two cannot be possible unless there is intellection involved. And this is why the beasts do not actually know how to combine this, nor do the predators know how to combine these two, because they are not aqili. They are not intelligent beings. But there is another creation that Allah had created prior to the human being, who was given aqili, and was also given these two faculties of concupiscence and irascibility. And this creature was able to combine these two, and in the combination of these two is where you now get shayateen, you get demons from that. Now, this is important to note. Not every jinn is shaitan. And likewise, not every shaitan is a jinn. Not every jinn is a shaitan, because there are jinn who are believers and there are jinn who are righteous. Not every shaitan is a jinn, because a shaitan can also be human. A human being can also be a shaitan. Min al-jinnati wan-nas. Alladhi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas min al-jinnati wan-nas. There are those who do this waswasa, and waswasa is a quality of the demons, is a shaitani quality from humankind and from jinn. So humankind has the potential of becoming demonic, and the jinn have the potential of becoming demonic. This is where primarily our study or our analysis of this great epic begins, because you had the antagonist existing prior to the protagonist's introduction, and he was existent in the highest order, which was the angelic rank. He was in the angelic presence. And then comes the protagonist, and that's when the true test on this individual has been applied. What is he going to do now? In the declaration of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to create and what is expected now from the angels and from Iblis, before he was called Iblis, and this is also another important thing to note, that Iblis was not always his name. Now, what his true name is more of guesswork. Some scholars have used the prior dispensations and they've derived from there and the name Azazel, which has some validity, but it's also debatable. Others have come up with different ideas as to what his name might be, but that's really besides the point. So the point when he became Iblis was not prior to him being expelled. It was at the point when he was expelled from the divine presence. At that point when he was first lowered in rank, and then he was told to leave. In Surah Al-Hijr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the declaration prior, فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. When I have built him, when I have proportioned him, and then I breathe into him of my spirit, then fall you, all of you, in prostration. And this prostration, it's not a sujood of ibadah. It is a sujood at tashrif. It's a sujood of utmost respect. And before Islam, such a sujood for the previous dispensations was not haram. It was made haram for the Muslims, that you're not supposed to prostrate before anyone else but God, at least not in a state of belief. Like, you can do the physical actual motion, maybe you want to help somebody pick something up or something, that doesn't become a sujood. But if it's done with belief that, you're actually giving the other person some sort of deification or some sort of divine rank, then that becomes haram. But previous dispensations were allowed to do a sajda of respect, and that's the sujood that's being done here. So when I fashioned him, you have to prostrate. Everyone in the heavens was given this instruction, including Iblis, who was there. So he was well aware of what he was expected to do. It was not like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Adam, showed everything was done, and then suddenly Iblis is hit by this instruction. I'm supposed to do what? Excuse me? It wasn't like that. He was given a pre-warning about this, right? So what then led to this prostration? What is it that, is it it that they prostrated to the creature, or is it that they prostrated to what the creature is able to do? Because the question that the query that the angels were putting were in reference to the realm. In other words, if you send this creature you're going to create, if you send him into this material realm, this is going to result from it, because that's the nature of this material realm. It's a world of causation, it's a world of causes and effects, it's a world of this dichotomy of two things. It's a world where things come together either in destruction or in harmony. It's a world whereby, by the natural laws of physics, when two objects collide, there's going to be damage. You see? So you're going to send somebody into this realm, this is what's going to happen. Because of what? Because the angels also understand that whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates is inherently pure. It's inherently good creation. He doesn't create evil at the get-go. Everything that He creates is a good creation. What it becomes thereafter, that's what determines the course of whether it will remain good or become spoiled. The nature of this world is it can either make the creature He sends into this world good, or it can spoil this creature. That's their concern. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. I know something, I know what you do not know about this creature. And that's when He وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. I see a lot of translations that say He taught Adam the names of all things. There is no things in that statement. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. There are only 4 words in that. There is no all the things. Which things? He didn't teach him names of things. Asma'a kullaha meaning complete names. All names, complete names, or the ability to name. Every language itself is a constituent of names, and this is what has been imprinted into the human being, the ability to use language, to name things, to define things, to describe things, and acquire what's known as abstraction of their essence. To abstract the essence of a thing and have it enter the heart as a form of understanding the thing. If I take any object, if I take an object like this, and I want to know this thing, I can't take this thing and put it inside my head physically. I can't do that, all right? Or my physical heart. The only way I can come to know this thing is to name this thing. When I name this thing, or if there's already a name existing, I take that name and I associate it with this object. And then I remember the name. And then from that name, I remember more names that describe this thing and define this thing. So that now when this thing is away from my field of view, if I say pen, or someone says pencil, or says qalam, or says any such thing that is related to that object, I have it in my heart preserved as an understanding of what that thing is, to know what they're talking about. This is the ability that was given to mankind. The faculty of speech and language constituent of the ability to name things through which he could then acquire knowledge. Knowledge is what's going to now enable him to navigate the world of causality. This world where it is just beasts and predatory qualities that are defined. The human being now comes in with an aqili quality, an intellective quality, so that he then understands what the beast is and where its limit lies, and where the predator is and where its limit lies. He then understands about himself that he also has these qualities. They have been placed in him, but they have been placed in him for a reason, to help him navigate this world, because you cannot come into this world if you are alienated from it. You have to have the same nature as of this world to navigate this world. If an alien comes to the planet Earth, for example, and cannot breathe oxygen, it will not survive in this world, right? or if it cannot eat ugali, it probably won't survive in this world, right? So the human being has been given these faculties so that he can adapt and survive this world. But he's been given the intellect and the ability to understand and learn these things so that he can then recognize that within himself he's got these faculties and they have their limits within him, and he should be able to now regulate them, control them, govern them. That's the Khalifa. That's how he then rises up to the angelic rank, when he is then shed off all these lower dimensions of himself. ثم عرضهم على الملائكة فقال أنبئوني بأسماء هؤلاء إن كنتم صادقين. Then he showed the same things to the malaika. Inform me about them. He didn't say name them. He didn't say, can you name these things for me? He didn't say that. He said, inform me about them. Inform me, أنبئوني بأسماء هؤلاء. Inform me about what are their essences? What would you define this thing as? What would you call that as? How would you abstract its knowledge? And they were unable to do it. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. We don't have any knowledge except for what you have given us. In other words, the angelic knowledge is not that one of learning. It's intuitive. Allah gives them whatever is required of each of them. But the human has been given an open field to study and learn and acquire as much as he possibly can. And then Adam was then made to demonstrate his ability. فَلَمَّا أَنْبَأَهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ قَالَ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَلَمْ أَقُلْ لَكُمْ إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ غَيْبَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَأَعْلَمُ مَا تُبْدُونَ وَمَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْتُمُونَ. I know, did I not tell you that I know that which is unseen of the heavens and the earth, and what you reveal and what you conceal? In other words, what he's saying is that it's not just the outward thing. There is an unseen matter that is now taking place here, that you cannot see, that the human being cannot see, but I can see it. I know what he's doing. The human being abstracting the essence of a thing and having it brought into his heart through all these different channels and mediums and points of information coming in, how all these components work together, the senses and the brain coming together, and then the intellect now doing this thing, how all these components working together in a perfect machine. But there is an unseen thing that is taking place here that you don't know, that you cannot see, but he can see it. This is called abstraction. This is what the human being does. And that's when he then told them, وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ أَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. That's when he gave the instruction then, after the demonstration has been done. But he had already told them before, when I fashioned him, when I have already proportioned him and given him my spirit, then you go down in prostration. But before that, this had to be demonstrated. Who this creature is, what his maqam is, what role he's going to perform. Illa Iblisa, he was one of them, not as an angel, but he was in the angelic presence. So he was also given the message. It was not all of a sudden, oh, I don't know what to do, it's confusing him or something. No. But there are three things that he did. Aba wastakbara wa kana min al-kafirin. Now, in this ayah, this is one of the rhetorical devices. This is what's known as, it's being expressed in brevity. So the highlights have been given, and then the expansion of the three actions are then given in stages. They unfold in stages. In other words, he didn't do Aba wastakbara wa kana min al-kafirin. Didn't happen in the same instance. At that same moment when the angels prostrated and it didn't happen in the same instance. He did Aba first, he refused. See, he just didn't do it. Istakbara happened much later on. And then to be categorized as kafirin happened right after that. So he refused first, and from that refusal is when Adam was then given his test, because Iblis was given his test at that point. I've given you an instruction. It's up to you whether you're going to follow that instruction. And if you don't, then you are the one who is going to face the consequences. So now, he's been put in place. Now Adam is the one who is then given his test. Why is he given this test? Because this is something that is preparing him for the nature of this world. The nature of this world is that it cannot be navigated on pure reason. It can only be navigated with guidance from God. In other words, what Adam is going to be now shown or taught is the nature of Sharia. To do something and to refrain from something. So Adam is then given his test here. In the same Surah Baqarah, he's told, you anta wa zawjuka uskun anta wa zawjuka al-jannah. You and your wife, your spouse, you dwell in paradise. وَكُلَا مِنْهَا رَغَدًا حَيْثُ شِئْتُمَا وَلَا تَقْرَبَا هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. Eat from anything or consume from anything that you want in abundance. شِئْتُمَا, whatever you want. وَلَا تَقْرَبَا هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ, do not approach this one tree. فَتَكُونَ, you become then مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ, from those who are unjust. Now, dhulm is very interesting in Arabic also, because the word dhulma, which is darkness, shares the same root word as dhulm, which is injustice. So darkness is related to injustice in the same way that justice is related to light. Likewise, ignorance is related to darkness in the same way that knowledge is related to light. In other words, you are going to become unjust, ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ وَبِغَيْرِهِ, to yourselves and then ultimately to others as well. That injustice will spread. If you disobey, it's not the tree that's going to turn you in unjust. If you look at the Arabic, وَلَا تَقْرَبَ هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ, وَلَا تَقْرَبَ, do not approach هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ, this tree, فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ, that you become مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ, among those who are unjust. It's not the consumption of the tree, it is the obedience or disobedience of his law. If he says don't do it, even though it is righteous to do, even though there's nothing wrong with doing it as far as your rationality is concerned, will you obey his command? Will you obey? Because he did the same thing to Iblis. Because Iblis blamed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See? But then they did it. He approached them. فَزَلَّهُمَا الشَّيْطَانُ عَنْهَا فَأَخْرَجَهُمَا مِمَّا كَانَ فِيهِ. But Shaitan then caused them to slip out. He made them slip from, because they were steadfast. Okay, Allah said don't do it, don't do it. They were steadfast, and He caused them to slip, which then caused them to be removed from paradise, and then they were told to exit. If you want to expand on this further in the Quran, then you go into more detail in Surah At-Taha, from ayah number 115, I think, or 116. وَلَقَدْ أَهِدْنَا إِلَىٰ آدَمَ مِنْ قَبْلُ فَنَسِيَ وَلَمْ نَجِدْ لَهُ عَزْمًا. We made a covenant with Adam min qabl, before, فَنَسِيَ, and he forgot. And so we found him lacking in that determination. In other words, this is part of who the human being is. Ibn Abbas said, نَسِيَ الْإِنسَانِ أَحْدِ اللَّهِ فَسُمِيَ الْإِنسَانِ. Insan was called Insan because he nasiya ahdillah, he forgot the covenant he made with God. The root word of Insan comes from the same root word as nasiya, and An-Nisa also comes from the same root word. So when Iblis did not prostrate, فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ أَبَى. This is the first section that in that ayah in Surah Baqarah you've got three components. So in this section in Surah Taha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now explains each of those components in detail. So first it's the Aba. وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ أَبَى. And we say to the angels, prostrate before Adam, and they all prostrated, إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ, except for, and this is unique in the Arabic language because you can't really say this in English. It's a sort of an exception from the whole, even though the two are not related. So in Arabic, you can say something like, all the men got up except the woman, even though the woman is not part of the, in English in Arabic it's there, you can say that. So he was still part of the same group. He was there and he heard the instruction and he knew what he was supposed to do. And so when he didn't do it, Allah told Adam now in this case, فَقُلْنَا يَا آدَمْ إِنَّ هَذَا عَدُوٌ لَكَ وَلِزَوْجِكَ. This fellow here, this guy, he is a clear enemy to you and your wife. You see what he has done, what he didn't do. You observe his actions. فَلَا يُخْرِجَنَّكُمَا مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ فَتَشْقَى. Lest then he gets you exposed or expelled from paradise and then you suffer. Why would you suffer? Because part of staying in paradise, the purpose of Adam and Hawa first staying in paradise before being sent into this world, was that they would undergo some sort of grooming. Remember, they have to understand the Sharia. They have to understand the nature of the realm that they're going into in order to, navigate it properly. But if they get removed before Allah has completed what task He has in mind for them, then they are the ones who are going to suffer, not him, right? And so the nature of this world is, what are the three basic necessities for human beings? You don't mind me asking you questions, right? You don't fall asleep, because Ustad Abdul Karim has got his camera off, so I don't know if he's awake, he's asleep. What are the three? Food, shelter and clothing, exactly. That's what's being highlighted in Surah Taha. Inna laka tajua fiha wa la ta'ra wa annaka la tadhma'u fiha wa la tadha. For you will not be hungry, or you will not be unclothed in paradise, and you will not be thirsty, and you will not be subjected to the scorching sun. So food, shelter and clothing, that's the nature of this world. And those are the things that if you do civil studies, until you take care of these, you can't really progress to higher levels of intellection, of let's say sciences or arts. So when you look at great civilizations and you look at their artwork and architecture and all those things that they achieved, you will find that first they had to take care of these necessities for their own people, until their own people were first, at least they were prosperous enough where they didn't have to worry about all this. So they had agriculture, they had food storage, they had enough clothing and textiles and all these things. Then you find that these people were now able to dedicate their time and effort towards learning and doing all these other things, right? So for the human being to actually succeed as God has intended him to succeed, he has to at least take care of these basic necessities first. So this is what Adam was told in this case. But Shaitan was doing his thing. فَوَسْوَسَ إِلَيْهِ Shaitan. Now why is he constantly called Shaitan in this ayah, in the previous ayah? Why is he constantly called Shaitan? Because he already began displaying demonic qualities. The deviousness, the strategy, trying to work his way around, playing dirty politics behind everyone's back. These are all demonic qualities. And he's now basically united the lower base. The two lower base qualities that he had, he's now united them in fulfillment of his greed and in fulfillment of his anger and his hatred towards Adam. So he then started giving them a different kind of ideology. And this ideology is at the very root of all human ideologies that are alienated from religion. So the foundation, the cornerstone of secularism is this ideology that is in this ayah. قَالَ يَا آدَمْ هَلْ أَدُلُّكَ عَلَى شَجَرَةِ الْخُلْدِ وَمُلْكٍ لَا يَبْلَى. Shall I show you the tree of immortality and the kingdom that never decays? In other words, can I show you how you can live longer despite the nature of your body? Or shall I show you how you can make everything around you last longer so that you never run out? We can go into a different discussion, but I mean, if you look at what secularists do today, it's the same ideology. Renewable energy and all these things that they are doing. Or it's all for humanity, right? إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. We're just trying to do good. This is what their whatever is, right? And then they are looking for all these ways of overcoming disease and anti-aging and so on and so forth. Anyway, so now you can break away from here to get more details. You go to Surah Al-A'raf. Is this Surah Al-A'raf? Yeah, you can go to Surah Al-A'raf, but there's more that he did to them. Yeah, Surah Al-A'raf. Yes. Yeah, أو تكون ملكين. It's in Surah Al-A'raf now. فوسوس لهما الشيطان ليبدي لهما ما وري عنهما. So he whispered. And here lahuma in it's not ilayhima, it's lahuma, which in Arabic is like if it would have said ilayhima, it would be okay. He just whispered to them, but fawaswasa lahuma, he whispered for them, is literal translation. But what it means is that he had an agenda, like he wanted them to do it. He was doing it intentionally. Now. Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about that how the Quran came to us that or that Iblis Shaitan in Surah Al-Taha, it said Shaitan, or it said Iblis told Adam, Shaitan, Ya Adam, Hal adulluka. Should I tell you or you something like that about the tree of eternity? According to this, what you are saying, we understand it that it was a conversation, a direct conversation, or it was just a whispering to Adam's heart, like the way he's doing now, the Shaitan?
It could be one of two. It could be one of both. It could have been a direct conversation, or it could have been more of a whispering into their heart. But what can be apparently deduced from this is that they weren't. This did not entice them. The tree of immortality and the kingdom, that did not work with them. That's not what actually got them to do what he wanted them to do. It's what he then does in Surah Al-A'raf when he then takes an oath. But prior to that, he says illa an takuna malakaini aw takuna min al-khalidin. And Ibn Abbas said you can recite that as malikaini, with the kasra on the lam, malikaini, like, so you can be kings, malikain, or malakain, or like angels. What really got to them was waqasamahuma. He swore to them, inni lakuma lamina nasihin. He swore to them that I am, and he took an oath by Allah. And this was more towards their fitrah, because they're not really been exposed to the causation of this world, the possibility of a lie. You see, they were in a state of pure fitrah. So children are in that state. A child will say, like I mentioned the previous time, even a child, when he says something, you know it's a lie, but as far as the child is concerned, it's as true as anything, right? Because they're from that pre-worldly state. They're still in a state of fitrah. So Adam and Hawa were not children, but they were in an environment that was pure fitrah. So for somebody to lie, it was not something that they would even think that somebody can do that, to tell them that this is to take an oath by Allah and then default on that oath. So they believed him when he said that. It was not about the first attempt did not pass, it didn't work. The second, the third, the fourth attempt, that's what now started getting to them. This is what he was constantly doing. A deal with the devil is not signed in ink and paper or blood. It's a long series of negotiation. This is what he does. He constantly does. It's what if this? What about that? Try this. Maybe not that. Try this. You see. So once he then told them, and lahuma, he was doing it deliberately and with clear intent. This is what he wanted them to. It was directed towards them. It wasn't just a passive thing. Okay, let me just try and see if it will work. No, he really wanted them to fail. So he ultimately made them fall through deception. فَدَلَّهُمَا بِغُرُورٍ, through deception. Because he constantly tried this, he tried that. Ultimately, he managed to deceive them. فَلَمَّا ذَاقَ الشَّجَرَةَ بَدَتْ لَهُمَا سَوْآتُهُمَا وَطَفِقَا يَخْصِفَانِ عَلَيْهِمَا مِنْ وَرَقِ الْجَنَّةِ. And when they tasted of the tree, then their shame became exposed, and they attempted to cover themselves with the leaves of paradise. And their Lord then called to them, and this is important, وَنَادَاهُمَا, he called to both of them. It wasn't just with Adam, it was with Hawa as well, or even though she's not mentioned by name in any of this, but you see the dual pronoun used. He called to both of them, وَنَادَاهُمَا Rabbuhuma, their Lord, alam anhakuma an tilkuma ash-shajara. Did I not tell you not to go near this tree? Number one, that was the Sharia, the command. Number two, that's part of the guidance. There are two things that come with the Sharia. Number one is the permissibility or impermissibility, the prohibition. And number two is the nasiha, the advice of your Lord. وَأَقُلْ لَكُمَا, and I say to you, إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَكُمَا عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ, that indeed this demon is a clear enemy unto you. What did they then do insofar as their mistake was concerned? رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا. Why? Because in the first instance he told them that you become مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ فَتَكُونَ مِنَ الظَّالِمِينَ. So now, Rabbana, because you told us this and we didn't listen. So that's the consequence now. We've wronged ourselves. Dhalimun li nafsihi, this is the basic point. An-nafs al-mutma'inna is the higher. An-nafs al-amara is the one that is now completely towards the shaitan. An-nafs al-lawama, naam, jazakallah. An-nafs al-lawama is the soul that is guilty of its own actions and is condemning itself. You see, that's dhalimun li nafsihi. You make a mistake, you wrong yourself, you accept your mistake, and then you rectify yourself. That's the first step towards rising or climbing the daraja of purity or of piety. So this is what they then, so Rabbana dhalamna anfusana فَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. If you don't forgive us and if you don't have mercy on us, we are going to be among those who are khasirin. We are going to be among those who are losers. But then now on this other side, Iblis was also now held to account for his action. And so he asked him very sincerely, مَا مَنَعَكَ قَالَ مَا مَنَعَكَ أَلَّا تَسْجُدَ إِذْ أَمْرَتُكَ. What prevented you? It's very interesting, this word. Ma mana'aka. What prevented you? Didn't ask him, why didn't you do it? What happened? Who said what? How is it that... Nothing. What prevented you? Ma mana'aka. Alla tasjuda id amratuka. When I'm the one who commanded you. It wasn't, oh, Jibril said something to you and you didn't like what he said. It wasn't, oh, Mikael was there and then, you guys were not getting along or something with the other angels. I am the one who commanded you. So what prevented you from obeying my command? This is Iblis's fallacy, and he's unable to see it. Why was he not able to see this question the way it was formed? He did not answer the question. What he did was give a justification for his action. Ana khayrum minhu. Khalaqtani min nar wa khalaqtahu min teen. I'm better than him. You created me from fire, you created him from clay. So if I'm fire and he's clay, and fire is better than clay, therefore I am better than him. It's logic, it makes sense, to him at least, right? This is what prevented him from seeing the truth, from seeing reality. It was his arrogance. This is when he became istakbara. In that ayah in Surah Baqarah, istakbara. This is the point when he became arrogant. And at that point of becoming arrogant is when he was now dispelled. He was told to leave the divine presence as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَهْبِتْ مِنْهَا فَمَا يَكُونُ لَكَ أَن تَتَكَبَّرَ فِيهَا فَخْرُجْ إِنَّكَ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. Leave, depart, descend. It is not for you to be arrogant in my presence. So leave, exit. Indeed, you are among those saghirin. You have been reduced. You have been made little now. You have been lowered in rank into now nothing worthy of mention. This is now when he is now also given the title Iblis, the one who despaired, because he then despaired. He despaired on that. Qala anzirni ila yawmi yub'athun. Give me reprieve, see me until the day they are resurrected. So he believes in the day of resurrection. And then Allah says, okay, very well. Innaka minal munzarin. You are among those who will be seen till that last day. And then he says, فَبِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي. Because you led me astray. Right? Fakhruddin al-Razi says, look at this foolish intellectual. First he says, I'm better than him. That's why I didn't do it. Then he says, because you are the one, so you knew that I wouldn't do it, but you still made me do it, so it's your fault. Right? You knew that I wouldn't be able to do it. You knew that, and you still made me do it. And you see, I messed it up. So because you knew it, it's your fault. You're the one who led me astray. لَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. I'm going to wait for them now. On the sirat al-mustaqim, the sirat that comes to you now, the right path, the straight path. I'm going to wait for them. ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ. I am then going to come to them from the front, from the back, from their right and from their left. وَلَا تَجِدُ. And it's very interesting, Ibn al-Hajj says that he didn't say from min fawqihim aw min tahtihim. Like it's an ishara from that ayah that he's going to come from above or from below, because guidance comes from above. And from below is humility, right? The lowest that a human being can go. When he's closest to his Lord Almighty is in Sijda, which is a point of humility. And Iblis will never humiliate himself. And he will not attempt to interrupt or to interfere with divine guidance if the connection is established. وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. And you will find that most of them are not grateful. Most of them are not grateful to you. An ingrate is a kafir. Someone who is not grateful is a kafir. Iblis was now classified as a kafir because of the favor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him, the one and only jinn from the entirety of his own people, the only one to be allowed to be in the angelic presence. And then he is ungrateful for that. Kana minal kafirin. To disobey your Lord is to be ungrateful to your Lord. To obey your Lord is to be grateful to your Lord. You see? And so then they were all expelled now collectively. قَالَ اخْرُجْ مِنْهَا مَذْمُومًا. Oh, this is Iblis who's being expelled. قَالَ اخْرُجْ مِنْهَا مَذْمُومًا مَدْهُورًا. Leave then now, disgraced and dispelled or expelled. Disgraced and banished. He is no longer allowed to come anywhere close to the heavens or paradise ever. Permanent ban. لَمَنْ تَبِعَكَ مِنْهُمْ. Whoever follows you, minhum, among them, from Adam, لَأَمْأَلَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ مِنْكُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. I am going to fill hellfire with all of you together. In Surah Taha, you see the expansion of this. قَالَ اهْبِطْ مِنْهَا جَمِيعًا. Descend now, all of you. All of you. Adam, Hawa and Iblis. بَعْدُكُمْ لِبَعْدٍ عَدُوٌّ. Some of you are enemies unto others of. So some of this race of the human beings are enemies of the other race of the jinn, which also unveils a different, another meaning to that as well, that some of them are friends. Some of them from the jinn are friends of those, some of them from the human beings. That you will find in Surah Ar-Rahman. Ya ma'ashar al-jinni wal-ins. This ma'ashar of jinn and mankind collectively, those who are collaborating. فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى فَمَنِ اتَّبَعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا يَضِلُّ وَلَا يَشْقَى. There will come to you, or if there should, it's conditional also, if there should come to you guidance from me, whoever follows the guidance, he is not going to go astray, nor is he going to have any suffering. وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشًا ضَنْكًا وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. Whoever turns away from my remembrance, my dhikr, remembering what? Remembering that covenant that you made with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alastu bi rabbikum bala shahidna. Am I not your Lord? Indeed we testify. That's the ultimate remembrance. You can go through all the sciences and you can learn everything there is to learn, but there are only two pathways you can take from that. If the sciences are taking you to wherever else, then you are headed wherever else. But if the sciences and the knowledge you acquire is done the right way, it will lead you ultimately to the remembrance of God Almighty. So whoever turns away from my remembrance is going to be raised blind. قَالَ رَبِّ لِمَ حَشَرْتَنِي. And then he will then say, why have you raised me blind? لِمَ حَشَرْتَنِي أَعْمَى. Why have you raised me blind? وَقَدْ كُنْتُ بَصِيرًا. And I was able to see. In this world, I was able to see. I was observing everything. Now you've raised me blind. قَالَ كَذَلِكَ. Just like that. أَتَتْكَ آيَاتُنَا. When our ayat, when our signs came to you, فَنَسِيتَهَا. You didn't pay any attention to them. You forgot about all that. وَكَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. Likewise, on this day, no one remembers you. In other words, why should I give you any preference when in your life, I was just an option? You came to me when you needed me only. You didn't remember me otherwise. When I gave you certain permissible things to do to your benefit, you didn't pay those any attention. You didn't dedicate your time towards seeking me out to try and understand me better. So why should I give you any priority when in your life I was just an option? وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي مَنْ أَسْرَفَ وَلَمْ يُؤْمِنْ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّي وَلَعَذَابُ الْآخِرَةِ أَشَدُّ وَأَقْوَى. And likewise, this is how we will najzi, we will recompense those who transgress now, those who now take their own pathways, those who follow khutuwatu shaitan, and they do not believe in the ayat, in the signs of his Lord, in the signs of everything that he has created. Everything is a sign that points to him. And for them now the punishment will be most severe and most enduring. This is now the finality of either of these two, the antagonist and the protagonist of the great epic, and the process that he must go through. And in recognizing that everything he does insofar as the duration of time he has been given, because each human being has a role to play in the entire population, and each human being has got a chapter to write, and each chapter combines with the next chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter to the finality of everything. And I'm going to stop here because this is a very vast topic and we can sit for hours just on this. I had to cut a lot of corners I would have loved to go into a bit more detail on some of the terms and words that are used to expand on more, but let's stop here for now, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. I leave it to you if there are any questions or comments or thoughts.
Yes, you're welcome to the group. If you have any questions,
Alaikum salam. Naam.
Okay, so I will just continue the recording. We'll finish with the question, inshallah.
Inshallah. Now.
So the question asked by Brother Abdul Karim, because of intellectual activity he had to drop off. Normally, when the Quran speaks about paradise, it says enter into the paradise. But in the case of Adam and Hawa, Allah says that stay in heaven or stay in paradise.
Mm-hmm.
So does that indicate that they were born in paradise and they were created in paradise?
Yes, it would indicate, and I think that's the dominant opinion, because foremost, when it comes now to the cosmology of Allah's dominion, we project an understanding of time and place, or space and time, with regards to the physical universe, right? But the same cannot be applied to the heavens or to paradise or to any other locality. Per se, we cannot actually give it a location. There is no coordinates as far as those dimensions are concerned. Because we then start to think about, well, where are the heavens? Where is paradise? Where is it? Can you point in one direction and say it's that way? You can't really do that, because time is different for the worldly domain, the al-ard, and it's different as far as samawat are concerned and Jannah is concerned. In other words, time in the earthly domain is time temporal. It's temporality, right? And then there is eternity, and eternity is not sequential. So also when examining these events that took place with Iblis doing one thing, Adam doing something else, the angels, it's not like one happened and the next happened and the next. It's not cause to effect in that case. There's no linearity to that. They could have all taken place in the same instance or far apart with no temporal link between them. It's very difficult to explain without any visualization, because you can't actually visualize time itself. And the same case applies to the locality. And this is an argument also that goes into Aqidah, particularly with those who take things a bit too literally, linguistic text literally, like asking where is Allah, and they say Allah is up, right? So when you say up, well, which way up? Is it up this way, or when the earth turns again it's up the other way? Which way is the upness, right? Again, that falls into the and it's discussed in Aqidah, because then you're actually giving God a physical location and binding God to space and time. So insofar as where they were created, that's a question that you cannot ask while you're existent in this world, because of the limitations of the language. Human language is tied either to time temporally or to space physically. So explaining the location of where exactly was Adam created, and it's very difficult. Even visualizing the gates of paradise, which way to go in and which way they come out from, which gate did they come out from when they were expelled. You can't visualize that. The same case applies to some of the ayat in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Jannatin tajri min tahtiha al-anhar. Beneath the Jannah are rivers. How do you visualize that a river flows beneath the garden? Don't rivers usually pass through the garden? So that alone breaks linearity of perception, because you can't. How do you visualize a river passing under the garden? It would show from the linguistics of these ayats that they were already in paradise, and paradise is the highest of the spiritual realms. So In the hierarchy of them, the Ard is the lowest. Then you've got the first heaven, the second, third, fourth, till the seventh heaven. Then you've got the lot tree, and then you've got the Arsh. And then beside the lot tree is paradise. So paradise is really the highest from the Samawat. So it could still be called a heavenly garden. And there is a debate, a khilaf among ulama, whether or not it is the paradise that has been promised, or it is a paradise that was in the heavens, perhaps in the highest heaven. Which garden or place, abode was this? So there's khilaf. And personally, I don't find any use in trying to figure out these differences of opinion, because what does it matter whether it was here or there? And I always say this whenever I teach the Quran, it's not about the components. It's about the message that is being given. What's the message that's being relayed here? It's not about the location. It's not about all these. These are all there to help build the story for you. But the story is meant to convey a message, right? So, uskun anta wa zawjuka, meaning stay in paradise. And that also is a vague term. It's not an ambiguous term. It's vague in the sense that were they outside of paradise and then told, okay, now you can stay in paradise? Or were they already in paradise and then told, okay, now just stay here? There is a compelling theory that the human being, the being itself, not the body or the soul or the heart or the intellect or any of the additional faculties or the peripherals of the being itself is a point of light. And paradise is from the Jabarut, Alam al-Jabarut, which precedes the Malakut, and that precedes the Mulk. So this world, physical world, is the Mulk, and then the Samawat are part of the Malakut, and then prior to that is the Jabarut, and the Jabarut is pure light. So that could be the point origin from where the human being first was conceived from, as a point of light, and then fashioned into the vessel that would house this point of light, which is the qalb, the heart. And then the heart is placed into the soul, which is an intermediary between these two realms of the malakut and the mulk. And then the soul is then placed into the body, which is of the mulk. So if they were told to stay in paradise, and we argue that that's where they were created, that argument is valid. It's not an invalid argument, because the human being is light in his most primordial nature, point of origin. He's not material. He is nur. And that nur is what gives him a status as a being that is unique and praised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he's worthy of praise. Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna, now when he's now become this pure soul, irji'i ila rabbiki, return back to your Lord, radiyatan mardiya, pleased and pleasing others. The soul itself is pleased, the being is pleased with what is accomplished, and others can acknowledge that they are pleased with the being. Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiya, fadkhuli fi ibadi wadkhuli jannati. Come back to your Lord, be now amongst my servants, and now enter into my paradise. Meaning go back to where you originally came from. So that argument is valid, that they were created, or the human being's origin is from that furthest point of the lot tree, or beside the lot tree. Now, any other question?
Not on my side. I had a few questions, but alhamdulillah they were already answered in the lecture. So maybe if we can end this with a dua, Ustad, inshallah.
Inshallah, and then we can end for tonight, then inshallah. سبحانك وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا بفضل سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خيرا for having me. جزاكم الله. السلام عليكم.